Hello, everyone. Morning, afternoon, or good evening, depending where you're joining us from. Thank you for joining another Atera webinar. Today, our topic is focused on successful healthcare IT, insights from the front lines. I do ask that we wait another minute to let some of our registrants attend. So if you still haven't grabbed your coffee, your water, now is the opportunity. We will start in exactly a minute. And again, while we wait for a couple more people to join us, if you've been on a Atera webinar in the past, then you know what our ritual is. We love to know where you're joining us from. So let's test out the public chat. Let us know where you're from. Okay, Sean. Hello, Sean. Thank you for joining. South Carolina, welcome. Got audience from California, Canada. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining our Atera webinar. Great to have you all with us today. As I said, we'll be starting in just a moment. Okay, we also have from Pakistan and Spain. Great, an international audience we have today, gentlemen. Wonderful. Okay, let's kick it off. Again, hello everyone and welcome. My name is Muna Asi and I head the product marketing team here at Atera. And I'm very excited to be moderating a session today with two gentlemen, customers of Atera, to talk about insights from the front line in the realm of healthcare, IT and healthcare. Just before we get started, let's just go through some housekeeping. This webinar is being recorded and we will share with registrants a link to the recording within 24 hours of the session. Questions or comments, I invite you to please post your questions or your comments in the Q&A section, and we will be addressing those right at the end. At the end of the webinar, we'll hold a live Q&A session with our speakers. So please don't be shy, put your questions in the Q&A box and we will take those towards the end. And right at the end, we will have a very short survey, just 5 questions. Please take the time. If you don't mind, answer it. It takes 1 minute of your time and it helps us continue to improve and bring the topics of interest. So without further ado, please allow me to introduce our speakers. Gentlemen, welcome. Let's start with you, Mike. Mike Crowder, National Director of IT at Alexa RX. Welcome, Mike. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Basically for the registrants and people on the webinar, I've been in the healthcare IT space for 33 years now. And it's a unique industry, as probably a lot of you on the call realize.
Well, for sure, 33 years means that it's not just unique, but it's a challenge that keeps you excited every day.
Mm-hmm. Very much.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. Adam, welcome. Adam Verrock, System Administrator at Wilmington I. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Hello, everybody. I just recently switched to healthcare, IT healthcare, 3 years ago. So I'll be able to probably provide some insight of what it's like to be in the general IT sector and then switching to healthcare.
Good.
So Adam, I know that you've been in IT since 2004. Maybe tell us a little bit about your history.
Yes. So I started out like I had an internship at a bank, and then I moved into a position there for a couple of years. Then I also did some IT work for an industrial company. Then I moved to working at an MSP for quite a while. We serviced thousands of customers, so I pretty much saw every possible nook and cranny of IT that you could probably see. I probably forgot most of it, but it's been a good transition, I think, to go into health IT and healthcare, just because it fits me better. It's a little more like think on your feet, shoot from the hip, because you have to be quick to change with what changes around you. So that's kind of what I hope to bring.
Thank you. And we'll definitely talk more about what it is that, makes IT and healthcare unique and what are some of the daily challenges. But before we go into that, I'd love to learn a little bit more, Mike, on your end. Tell us a little bit about Alixa RX and, of course, your position there and what does that really mean on a day-to-day?
Sure. So basically, my title is National Director of IT for Alixa RX. I actually manage all of our IT functions across the U.S. in much the same way a CTO, CIO would manage. I'm very much a roll up my sleeves every day and do the work, as well as set direction for my employees and for an outsourced group I have in the Philippines. Alixa is basically, we're an institutional pharmacy, so you can't walk into us off the street like a CVS or a Walgreens and buy medications. We service specific post-acute care sites with automated medication dispensing machines. We're in 16 states today. We have about 25,000 covered patients. Each customer facility has access to around 400 medications on site, readily available. And those even include, the things we hear about, opioids, controlled substances, but they are very tightly monitored. We have 5 operating pharmacies, and our dispensing sites are within a perimeter around those of 200 to 300 miles. They are Fresno, Kansas City, Kansas, Indianapolis, Indiana, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So we cover, basically here, we cover 3 time zones. Pacific, we cover actually Eastern as well as Central time zone in the U.S. We are private cloud hosted, so we don't have our own data center, but all of our sites, all the remote sites, all of our pharmacies connect to a data center based in Dallas, Texas. We have about 500 user endpoints that are a combination of PCs, laptops, thin clients, and even the customer site PCs that drive the dispensing machines. And they are all maintained in Atera and supported by our central IT team here in the Dallas, Texas area. So that's a plug for Atera in that it gives us the ability to manage these devices from afar. We don't have IT folks in our pharmacies, just in our corporate headquarters here. So we support numerous technologies from software development, quality assurance, integrations, middleware, mobile devices to networks and via voice over IP telephone system nationally. So a little bit about Alixa RX, and a little bit about my role here. I get involved in everything from software development all the way to management of our end user devices, management of our network connectivity between all of our sites, and employee trouble tickets as well as customer trouble tickets. And I run very much a 24/7 organization.
Amazing. That's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. And I don't believe, Mike, you shared with us where you are actually based.
Yeah, I'm actually based in Plano, Texas. That's where our headquarters is. We're just outside of Dallas, Texas, for those of you that are familiar with Texas. So we're here in North Texas and love it here.
Wonderful. Thank you for that introduction. Definitely a well-established and large organization. And I love that you shared that you are supporting IT remotely. And I think that's probably one of the key things that we will discuss. What does it mean for a distributed site and support of IT? Back to you, Adam. Adam, can you hear us? I see that you may have some technical challenges maybe with the video.
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can
Yes.
hear you, but we
Okay.
cannot see you.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It's kind of cliche for an IT guy to have IT problems, but I'm working
Oh
on it.
gosh.
Sorry. Well,
All right. Can you see our screen at least? I mean, I
I
think we can
can,
try
yeah.
and. All right.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Wilmington Eye. Who are you? What do you do? And what's your role there specifically on a day-to-day?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm the system administrator. I was part of I did have two people on my team, but recently lost one earlier this year. So we kind of realized that we could function as two people. So we're just kind of going with it right now. But the practice was founded in 1975. It's been around the area for a while. We have 8 locations servicing about 6 counties. We have the only outpatient surgery center in the area. Currently, we have 23 providers, but we'll be adding 2 more later this year. Of that, 11 of those are surgeons, 11 of them are eye doctors, and then we have 1 medical ophthalmologist currently. Other than that, it's pretty much like you would expect any eye doctor that we've all been to. It's just a larger firm where we all kind of pool resources and share equipment and whatnot.
Okay, great. And you're based out of North Carolina?
Correct. Yes, Wilmington, North Carolina.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Adam. Now let's really start to dig into healthcare as a unique IT vertical. Can we really say, Mike, that healthcare is a unique vertical? And if yes, what are some of your unique challenges and pain points?
Yes, Muna, it is a unique vertical, and some of the unique challenges we have are certainly HIPAA and high tech. And I know that most of you in IT anywhere have HIPAA regulations for your employees, but we're also dealing with patients, and securing their information is very important. Certain firms around the U.S. involved in healthcare, you probably read about where they have breaches of patient data, or you even hear about companies have breaching of customer data. Those are events that can actually fine you so much that you're put out of business. Some of the other unique pain points that we have is pretty much every business says they're 24/7, but that's not always the case, and we are truly 24/7. Our patients have to get their medications timely to ensure that their outcomes are good physically, and also to mitigate their pain if they're a patient nearing end of life, and to also ensure that our customers are satisfied with the service we provide. So network connectivity is a challenge across 220 sites around the U.S. plus our own sites. Other challenges that we face that get more into healthcare, like the High Tech Act and various other regulations coming from Medicare, Medicaid, insurance payers, Veterans Administration. So very unique challenges, a lot of regulations, a lot of new regulations come out that force us to change software and deploy new products frequently. So from a high level, I would say those are the main challenges and pain points faced by ElixRx.
Okay. And Adam, from your end, obviously you spoke about being currently a one-man show, providing IT support for 21 providers. Can you talk about some of the IT challenges that you're seeing, especially since you haven't been in the healthcare realm for a long time?
Yeah, actually, well, I do have one person working with me. I've used to 2, but now I just have the one under me. But yeah, it's definitely been a little challenging. But on the other hand, I'd feel that it's being that it's so regulated and what's expected of you. in a lot of ways, it's just checking boxes, just making sure that you're, compliant with all the current regulations. But it's always a challenge with anything like that, whereas you have many people doing many different things, and it's keeping them all following protocol to stay secure. That type of focus is challenging for sure.
Okay, and Mike talked about regulation and compliance. I assume that's the same across your organization, but is there something to do with legacy solutions or supporting different software and systems that makes it a little bit more challenging on your day-to-day?
Yes. So we have quite a lot of testing equipment, different imaging equipment that scans retinas, lenses, every part of your eye. And a lot of that has been around for quite a while, and not many changes have been made to the equipment. So we end up with the situation where it was designed for Windows 7 or even later than that or earlier than that. So there's the challenge of integrating it into a system and network connecting it, but finding a way to do it securely. There's always the workarounds that we have to find, but it's also just the way that it works, because this equipment is upwards of $30,000 to $60,000 to replace. So it's the firm is not going to find that as a solution when there could be a workaround. So that's always a daily battle, but it's always an interesting battle.
And do you also feel that from your organization, it's a 24/7 support?
Yes and no. We do have the doctors that are on call over weekends and overnight in a schedule, but that doesn't happen that often because we do have a level 1 trauma center like really nearby us, our main location. So most of the time, if people have something like that, they go there. But we do have emergency surgeries and procedures that do need to be done. So there is times where I'll get a call at any given time because they're having an issue with, something that they're using at that moment.
Okay. And if we're to look at some of the trends in healthcare, Mike, from your end, again, 33 years, you've probably seen it all. What are some of the emerging trends that you're seeing, in the past year and the upcoming year that you've needed to either budget for or plan?
I think the key trends that we face right now is more integration. I see more middleware and more integration than I've ever seen in my career. And in particular with electronic health records, sending patient information, prescription information to our machines to be dispensed, and the criticality of those interfaces being up and running. By example, 3 years ago, we had a total of about 50 facilities out of our 220 that were integrated. Now we have 170 out of 220 that are integrated. And the thing that is driving this is really regulatory by government payment agencies, Medicare and Medicaid in the US. And so they're actually paying our customers better reimbursement rates if they are electronically integrated than if they're using, paper to integrate with us, or if we're just doing faxing. Believe it or not, faxing is still a very prevalent legacy technology in our world, and nobody would love to get rid of it more than I would. The other thing that I think we're going to start seeing, and this is really a crystal ball thing, but artificial intelligence is going to get involved here. Now, healthcare is not an industry, particular post-acute care where we operate, is not an industry that's leading edge. We tend to wait till things are past the hype cycle, more mature before we pick them up. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for artificial intelligence in the area of reimbursement, our accounts receivable side, situations where we have multiple different payers for products we deliver, and being able to integrate with those products more readily without adding people, human resources to deal with them. Certainly the reimbursements are always being driven down in the U.S. We're unique in that our healthcare is not nationalized. And so all the government payers, Medicare, Medicaid, Veterans Administration, as well as the insurance companies, are driving down the cost of the ability to what they're willing to reimburse. Sorry, I didn't speak that well. So as they do that, the only way that we can keep our profit margin good is to figure out where we can take cost out of the equation, whether that be the medications we buy and distribute, whether that be through our vendor partners on various services such as IT services, or whether we can do things more efficiently. And I think that is where AI will really drive significant change in the next 2 to 5 years in our industry.
Amazing. And obviously, we also talk about where AI might meet you within tools like Atera when you're looking at IT and technology in a minute. Adam, from your end, what are you seeing as some of the current trends in healthcare?
What I've definitely seen here, and then I've heard of in the area, kind of following suit, is that a lot of these practices are transitioning from a remote support MSP kind of support situation to an in-house person or people, and it's mostly due to keeping patient care and clinic flow moving. And that was always a challenge here. Before I started, they had a remote support company that they worked with, and there was always delays, and it was just too much for them to write off. So they ended up hiring me, and I've since created a team. But that was one of the biggest transitions that I've heard of and seen, because I was thinking years ago that it was probably going to move more towards all MSP support. It seemed to be the trend, but I think we've dialed that back a little bit, and realized that there's a human aspect that's needed. Not that if you're an MSP, you're not human, but it's on-site, face-to-face help where you're sitting at a desk where they can go and grab you, is something that's important. And then also, I would say that actually, to expand on that, the faster resolution response needed was the main factor in that change, and that's the major transition that I've seen. As far as AI that you were speaking of, I don't feel that there's much push to move in that direction here, anyways. I wouldn't say it's a generational thing, but I do feel that there's a lot of hesitation from most of the providers and the doctors to add that type of feature, even though I try to explain to them that it's not, what you see in a movie. It's something that will just help certain aspects of your job, but there is a lot of hesitation for sure.
Yeah.
Interesting. And it's really interesting to see the the difference. I guess it does. What comes to me is that it depends on the healthcare institute, and maybe depends on the service that you're offering. It depends on the people that you're working with, from what you just said. And of course, how you're getting reimbursed for whatever technologies you put in place will probably determine how much budget you're willing to to put in order to either become more efficient, automate, save costs in certain areas. And that's where Mike, for example, said tools like AI and AI technology in certain realms would help optimize. I'd love to hear about what a day in a life looks like for each of you. Maybe we'll start with you, Mike. What does a day of the life of an IT director look like, in an organization that's so distributed?
Yeah, it's, certainly there are no quiet days. As I moved up the ladder in the industry, I quickly found that with each jump, there's a lot more to worry about and take care of. But typically my days, and I work a hybrid schedule, so I work from the office 3 days a week to help lead my local team here. And then I work from home 2 days a week. My days are filled with a lot of meetings around strategy, taking care of issues, creating plans to resolve issues that take more effort than just we'll call a desktop support type situation. I typically arrive at the office bright and early, 7:30. I'm usually the first person in the building. And that's so I can get all prepared before the first meetings start or before various endeavors need to happen. It also helps me catch up from the night before if I haven't been called the night before on something. I very much am hands-on. I get calls, after hours, weekends, holidays, if major things happen. We have to dispense the drugs. We have to deliver the drugs to our customers. And so, if there's network issues or anything, I'm notified during the night by our technical support. During the day, most of my days, I would say that I probably spend 30 to 50% of my week in meetings, working with peers, leadership, my team to make sure we're moving on the right endeavors, the right priorities. It's very much important for us to prioritize. There are more things to do than there are people always. And so the other thing that I do is I check our ticket queue every morning when I first log in to see if anything's lingering as an issue that needs to be escalated within my team or within my MSP. And I even do things like make sure that our invoices that come in monthly for our various IT services are handled and sent to the accounts payable group. Email is very much a heavy usage for me, probably 200 to 250 a day. And then some people try to send you projects over email instead of discussing them. The other thing that we have instant messaging, so I'm off and on there pretty regularly. All of our leadership has my cell phone, so a day in my life is really just making sure things are moving forward and that there's nothing serious that I need to go report to my leadership team or that didn't get resolved from the night before.
Thank you for that. And Adam, we'd love to hear about what a day in the life for you looks like, and especially since you did transition from another industry into this position. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like and if there really is a difference.
Yes. First, I want to apologize for my technical issues. That's part of my daily job, I guess, apparently. Yeah, so in general, I don't feel like there's a stark contrast of daily work per se. But I do think that the fight to keep 100% uptime throughout the clinic hours, especially, is the main difference. That you have to drop anything to make sure that the patient flow is kept up, because everything is scheduled down to the minute. And a certain piece of equipment is used for a patient. It's set for that time. If the patient comes in late, sometimes that'll create some issues. But that's the only real difference, I would say, in a daily aspect. Other than that, I'm kind of similar to Mike. At this point in my career, I've realized that it's a lot more planning, it's a lot more meetings, it's a lot more emailing than I ever expected. But we also similarly use instant messaging. We use MS Teams for as much as possible, which is helpful because it is kind of integrated. At least I'm not checking multiple different portals. But that I'd say, and I didn't realize how many reports I was going to pull every day. That was a different a difference in this job. I've realized that keeping people up to speed on the health of your systems is very important in healthcare, because they want to feel confident that everything's going to work tomorrow when a patient comes in or whatever it might be.
Interesting. And so if someone is now looking to you and asking themselves, what are some of those changes that you've experienced over the last couple of years, and what does it take to actually get into healthcare IT? I'd love to hear some of your tips. And obviously, these might be some younger people that are just coming into the realm of IT. Why should they consider? Mike, maybe first, or Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go first this time. So I would say, be ready to be more flexible. Hopefully you're already a flexible person if you want to get into healthcare. But there's the standards and expectations are constantly evolving, and it's definitely, if you're too set in your ways, I could see it being a complication, because there's a lot of hands on that do different roles. But that, and I guess as far as expert tips, if you're heading up a team, really take the time to find the correct candidates. I probably can't over stress that enough, I guess. You can put a team together, but if it's the wrong fit, you will have a really hard time. And I've gone through that. I've been on both sides of it, but as a managerial position, it is a daily battle to keep everybody happy, even though it's, your job should be IT. You're also, kind of a psychiatrist too, a little bit, to help everybody keep them happy. But I would say definitely finding the right people to work with. Take the extra time to really do that, and you'll be a lot happier. I think I touched it. What was it? Advice? Yeah. That's all I have for that.
Thank you, Mike. From your end.
So if we talk about change through the years in IT, I mean, one thing that I've seen in recent years is everything's getting much more integrated, much more electronic, and I think we've lagged behind verticals such as finance, banking institutions in particular. I think we've lagged behind retail also. And I think we're just now getting into a maturity level on understanding what our data can tell us about patient care, what it can tell us about outcomes, and such things as what drugs put a patient at risk for falls, various things that can send them back to the hospital, which is very costly to our post-acute care organizations. So I'm seeing a lot more effort towards integrations, towards technology, electronic documents versus paper documents, and more collaboration than what I've seen in the past. Now, I feel like IT has collaborated for many years, but I feel like it's just now getting to the C level in organizations such as mine. and it's become a very big thing recently. I think the other thing that's a big change is we're seeing a lot of consolidation in healthcare and bigger organizations taking over smaller organizations. I would hazard a guess that in Adam's organization that a lot of those providers had single practices and are now working with Wilmington Eye, for example. We're seeing the same thing in the post-acute care space and in the pharmacy institutional space. As far as people advice for getting into healthcare IT, I mean, my advice is that like any other IT career, it's a continual learning curve. You have to continue to learn new things. You have to be willing to learn new things. You can't really rest on your laurels. If there's one thing that I've done in my career, it's like I've continued to try to educate myself and learn new things. When I look back 10 years ago, I was primarily in software and integrations, and I've had to learn managing an MSP, moving things to the private cloud, managing desktops, and managing a technical support group for our automated dispensing units in all the sites. So just be prepared for a continual learning curve. The one thing I would tell you if you're considering getting into healthcare IT is that it's a great market to get into because people will always need care. And in the US in particular, we have 10,000 people in my age group every year that are moving into retirement. And that drives up the business level of our post-acute care facilities that we service. So I've spent really my entire career on a vertical market that is post-acute care, both from a provider standpoint as well as a pharmacy standpoint now for the last 12 years. And so, it's a very, I won't say it's lucrative, but I would say it's secure, it's stable, and we are just now hitting our stride with some of the technologies available. So that would be my advice for getting into healthcare IT. And, be prepared that you may work some weekends and holidays, and that's just part of the gig, but I have a feeling that a lot of you are doing that today. IT has never been a true 8 to 5 blue collar job.
Yeah, I mean, we hear it all the time. And recently I was looking at some research that shows that 27% of employers are looking for IT experts this year,
Mm-hmm.
and the numbers seem to be growing year over year. So I'm wondering, and from your perspective as leadership, is it because people are shifting away from IT, or is it that there's the need for more expertise and therefore, as Adam said, finding the right staffing? What is it that you're seeing? You talked about continuous education, but what is making it so challenging to find those experts in the realm of IT and data management?
Well, I'll start on that, and my opinion is there's a lot of factors influencing that, of course. And I think the number one factor is there aren't enough IT people graduating from colleges today. And I also think that another issue that has happened with that is that there was a very big trend, and if any of you on the line are MSPs or outsourced partners for large organizations, please don't take it the wrong way. But there was a very large trend to outsource IT efforts to offshore in the late 90s, early 2000s. And that drove a lot of added demand because a lot of the people we were outsourcing with, I was in several occasions, were not as knowledgeable on the healthcare business. So we had to augment the staff with both on-site staff as well as added staff for the projects we were doing offshore to help drive the business knowledge needed to complete those assignments. I think the other thing is every company now, and this has been this way for probably, I would say, 10 to 15 years, companies are now starting to realize that without a good technology strategy and a good digital transformation strategy, they will be left behind by their competitors eventually. And so it's driving a lot of additional IT positions for this very reason, that more and more companies have gotten heavily invested into IT research and development and deployment. And that's a trend that's not going to go away. I mean, it really got real heavy when the internet first started maturing, but now it's getting even more heavy as we look at the value of data in our organizations, as we look at things like artificial intelligence, as we look at electronic document management. All these things are converging and driving a large demand for IT people. And it's not going to go away, and certainly not in my lifetime. It's going to continue to grow, and there just really is not enough good qualified candidates to staff all the open positions, and that's been a trend for many years now. For example, .NET developers, I have a lot of friends in the recruiting industry, and they tell me that there's more .NET developer positions open in the US and likely in the world than there really are .NET developers, for example. So we see that with a lot of the technologies.
Thank you for that, Mike. And Adam, one of our attendees here, Ed Rowland, was just sharing with us that he now works in education IT, but he has a real offer on the table for health-related position. And he's contemplating and considering whether it's the right approach to make the switch. What would you say as someone that did make a switch?
I'd say that weigh all the pros and cons as far as like cultural changes that will happen, because it's hard to say just from education to healthcare, because there's a lot of different little factors in between there. But in general, I would say that I have friends that work in education IT, and they've seemed to be always frustrated. So I'm thinking it would be a good transition for you, but it is definitely probably going to be a little more hours from what I hear, because of summers being off, whatever. I am jealous of that, of the friends that I was speaking of, that they have some summertime off. But other than that, you would be doing about the same thing for the most part. Long as you're keeping up to date with the different trends and changes of HIPAA and any other compliance rules that you might come across.
Okay, so definitely education and continuously learning and keeping up with technologies seems to be key across IT. And if we talk about technology, Mike, what are you seeing as essentials in the tech stack for healthcare today?
Well, I think certainly that if you're running a distributed organization such as we are, you have to think about how do you easily deploy your software and applications and updates. So, I think that, in my opinion, the number one essential in healthcare, if you're running distributed locations like we are, is Citrix or VMware, so you can host your applications and the end user device is not unique per device. That's the best way that we handle having 500 endpoints, is by managing our primary applications through a deployment strategy that utilizes Citrix and VMware. And I think you have to continue to do that. You can't have unique desktops per user, and that's a key essential. I think the other thing is standardizing on a single database platform. I came from an organization where I spent 21 years, and we had nearly every database platform known to man. It was very hard to integrate things. It was very costly to have a DBA for Microsoft SQL, Oracle, DB2 on a mainframe environment. And we even at one point we had Sybase on another partner system. So pick a platform and stick with it. You know, I won't say that I bleed Microsoft blue, but we picked Microsoft as our platform for development and database, and we've stuck with that. And we do not bring in systems that have other databases. The other thing is just making sure that you have repeatable deployment processes for your workstations, for your laptops, for new phones that go out to desktops, for mobile devices, cell phones, tablets, and as well as your software, that you can do a software deployment without it taking, you know, a week of effort to do, that you can deploy it in an early morning while things are a little bit quieter and be done with it in a couple of hours across multiple locations. So I think remote deployment is a key thing that you have to think about on everything from your hardware to your software and your integrations. Those would be my main points.
Thank you, Adam. From your end, some of the essentials there, and I'm sure some are similar to what Mike shared with us.
Yeah, actually, he pretty much touched all the bullet points that I had here. But yeah, consolidating to a centralized solution is definitely going to make your life a lot easier. And then as far as, you know, reporting the health of that system, it makes it a lot easier because you've got it all your eggs in one basket for the most part. So it's that is definitely a top priority. The other thing that I would suggest, and this isn't just a healthcare IT suggestion, but moving your backbone to a cloud or AWS or anything cloud-based. I didn't realize how much that was going to make it easier to sleep at night, knowing that someone else was monitoring, like our domain controller or our app server or something like that. That it's another set of eyes was on it. At least it's not that I spent any less time. I spent a lot less time worrying about it. Just because it's, I don't have to worry about, there was a storm in the area and the power went out at that building. And, that's like all those worries go away. There's other worries, obviously, that come up, but I think it's a good trade-off and it makes your life a lot easier and a lot less stressful for the main stress pain points anyway. Also, I would say, having a good system like Atera. I've used many different ones. I'm partial to Atera now, but having a system like that in place with an all-in-one integrated kind of package also is a huge time saver, and it makes it so that you're able to give a lot better care and support to all your users. It's having the ticketing built in and all the different features. I've never been in a situation where I had all in one. I've worked with Enable or I'm trying to think what else, Ninja RMM and a whole bunch of different, more than you can think of. And it was always that they didn't do everything. So it was like, you had to go into this portal for this and this portal for that, and that type of thing, and it ended up wasting a lot of time. So finding a solution that works for you, which for me was Atera, definitely saved a lot of time and made it so that I could give better support.
Thank you for that, Adam. Appreciate your support and your continued business with Atera. And that leads me back to you, Mike. How do you prioritize IT projects, considering budget constraints? And then, as you look into selecting vendors such as Atera, what are some of the considerations that you look at in the realm of healthcare to ensure that
Yeah.
it's the right vendor for you?
So basically, when you talk about projects, the main thing for me is presenting something to leadership that has a return on investment in a timely manner. And I'll be honest, we hardly ever do anything that doesn't pay for itself within 3 years. We will just put it on the table if it doesn't, because there's plenty of things we can find that do pay for themselves in a year or less, 2 years, 3 years. And so that's what we really focus on. We don't do IT for the sake of IT. You know, for example, I don't have a migration plan to Windows 11 right now. Now I know I'm going to have to come up with it, but our leadership and ownership right now, they could probably care less about that compared to other things we've got going. So we prioritize things based on business need, value. Does it differentiate us from someone else, or does it have an ROI that's pretty quick? And we are a privately held company, so you know the budget's always going to be a challenge. We're not a huge organization of billions of dollars. I would piggyback Adam's comments on Atera. You know, it did allow us to easily support both our employees as well as our devices from afar. And for what we paid for it versus other solutions we looked at before, it's a great value and the reason we chose to go there. We also make sure that any new software request, I saw a question out here about how do you manage requests. And the bottom line is, if you want a new software, it has to come through someone at my level or above to be approved. We don't let, we've got about 350 employees, and we don't let people have their own preference of what they run. We have a standard software offering that we distribute to our people. And if they want to add something new, then it has to go through an approval process and a vetting process, which also includes, and it ties into projects and vendors of, how long has this vendor been in business? Are they big enough to support an organization like ours, or are they what I call a garage band? 2 or 3 people in a garage somewhere created it. Now, not making fun of Apple there, but the truth is, you get good contracts with people. You make sure they honor those contracts. You make sure that you have business associate agreements so that they can't poach your people or share private health HIPAA information outside of your organization. So there's a lot that goes into contracting with people in a healthcare organization and in choosing vendors. And I suspect that choosing vendors part is very strict for most any industry, because you don't want to do business with somebody that started up 6 months ago and may be here tomorrow, may not be here in 18 months, So those are some of the key decisions that go into it. And so hopefully that answers the question.
Definitely. And we have another question here from the audience, which I think we touched on very, very early in the conversation, about how much does SOC and HIPAA compliance play a role when you're selecting a solution? How important is it for healthcare institutions?
I'll let Adam go first and then I'll follow.
It's actually, that would be my first criteria that I would have to check off all the boxes for that before I went any further. Because if it isn't compliant, or if it's going to be a challenge to make it compliant, it ends up being more trouble than it's worth. Every situation is different, but that's definitely the first thing that I go to, just because I know that's the first question I'm going to be asked by my superiors, just to, everyone covering their butt kind of thing. So that is important, whether it be with equipment or policies, just about everything.
Thank you for that. And Mike?
So my organization is private, so SOX doesn't really affect us. However, I worked in a healthcare organization that had to be SOX compliant, and I was actually one of the key contributors to that project. And I can tell you that even though we're private today, we have set up Alexa RX in the manner that it would be SOX compliant and that it would be able to go public at some point if we chose to do so. So I'm very familiar with Sarbanes-Oxley and the ramifications there, which are predominantly what I would call audit ramifications that have been enhanced. We are audited every year, and I play a heavy role in that, being the leader of IT for our organization. But yeah, just like any other corporation, SOX is something that we have to think about. We're not held to it from a standpoint of being privately owned, but I can tell you that me and my leadership team are very focused on it. We all come from organizations that were Sarbanes-Oxley compliant, and so we continue to do our best to make sure that if someday we did decide to do a public offering, that we would not have to say, well, we need a year to do SOX compliance and get certified. We would be ready in a matter of weeks to be certified and ready to go. So good question.
Thank you for that. I have another question about how do you approach training and upskilling of your team, given the rapid pace of technological changes in healthcare?
Well, for me, and I meant to touch on this a little earlier, certifications and just about everything has their own training program of some kind that you can have your people work on. But I guess it, in some contrast to what I hear a lot of people say, I don't feel that a college education per se is like a bachelor's in IT or something like that is really the way to go, or taking multiple classes for certifications. I think a lot of it is all right in front of you. There's definitely been a renaissance of free ways to learn just about everything. So I think that when it comes to training and being up to speed on what the new changes are, that's something that I kind of leave on my people to do on their own. Obviously, I monitor what they're moving on to, but that's something that as an IT person, you kind of just have to do in your own time anyway. So that would be where I would go with that, is that, I'm kind of the type that if your job's done correctly at the end of the day, I don't really care how you got to it, or how you did it. So if you can learn how something is going to change, or have a plan of what you're going to do when it does change, I'm happy with that.
All right. Do you take a similar approach, Mike?
Really do take a similar approach. Budgets are tough, and education for employees, conferences, certifications are just not really something that we budget for annually. My advice is similar to Adam's. If you want to stay in the industry, invest in yourself and invest in education. But I'll take it a little further in that, it's not just IT that needs training and mentoring. So one of the things that we do is we facilitate, when we're rolling out some new technology or some new software, we facilitate train the trainer sessions for the leadership at the remote locations to do this training, and for the people that are going to work with it. And the other thing that we do is if we take on a new software or something, we have a very active operations department that partners with my department to do screenshots, to do training, what have you, on the systems that are used by everybody from our technical support all the way to the actual end users at all of our locations. So training's a very big part, and should be a big part of any organization of any size. So I would echo what Adam says, but also go a little further to all employees need training. It's not just limited to IT.
Thank you for that. And definitely we can continue talking here for another hour. There's a lot to learn from you both, and definitely a lot of interesting elements into IT in the state of healthcare. But we have come to the end of this webinar session. I really want to thank you both for your time, for your insights, for sharing a day in the life in your organization. Thank you so much. If you've got any final words that you want to share with our audience.
Yeah, actually, I will say that as far as public speaking, I'm sure everyone can tell that's not my forte. But what's going on in my brain is going a lot faster than what words I can put out. But I think that Mike really was a lot more eloquent and said almost all the things that I would have said. So I appreciate that. I'm a more hands-on person than I am speaking, but I'm glad to, share whatever I can in, the best way that I can. So I thank you all for listening.
Of course, Adam. We're happy to have you. Go ahead, Mike.
I would say to all of you, I did tell Moon at the beginning of the call that I was happy for my email to be shared out. I will warn you, I tend to be a very busy guy. So if I don't get to you in 24 hours, just know that I will get to you. I do answer my emails. The other thing I noticed that Gordon had put out a question about how do you validate compliance in your vendors. I mean, we typically in Alixa, we look for vendors that have operated in this space with other companies similar to ours so that we know they're used to the healthcare vertical. We very rarely would do business with somebody that has not worked with the healthcare industry. And we also look for vendors of size and scale that we know, they can support our compliance needs and they can follow them. In addition to, I mentioned earlier, Gordon, that we do business associate agreements with all of our vendors that talks about HIPAA and the need for compliance. And so they all have to sign off and agree on those contracts before we will do business with them. So thank you all for having me today. And it was a pleasure talking about this with everybody. Who doesn't love to talk about themselves?
I want to thank you both. This has been very informative. I'll remind the audience that this is being recorded and that we have a short survey, if you don't mind, for those that are still with us, if you can answer that. And a final note under the document section, we do have a document that we've put out around healthcare and IT and what you can learn from some of the technologies out there. So again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us and wishing you a great rest of day. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, all.